I am super excited to introduce our very special guest speaker today. You can see him on the screen with me. His name is Hugo Ruiz Quintana. He's tuning in from Madrid in Spain. So you can imagine it's a little bit late over there. So we all have to give him a round of applause for joining so late to talk about this super cool subject. And just to give you a little background, Hugo is a 2D artist for Crema and FunPlus. He moved to Madrid and studied game design and development at the ESNE School of Design, Innovation, Technology, and is currently a concept art teacher there. Hugo has also helped develop several video games at studios like WildBit and Team Gotham. So I'm going to hand it over to Hugo. Take it away.
Okay, so I was going to introduce myself, but I think that Marisa did it better than me. So I'm going to skip the first part of the presentation. I have to say that during my career, I've worked as 3D modeler, animator, concept artist, but at the moment I totally focused on character and environment design, as well as texture painting. If you keep learning about this world, you will see that making textures is a big part of the video game development. Apart from my personal projects, another very important game for me, apart from Tenten, that maybe it's one of the most famous things that I've done. I think that I'm not sharing the screen. Oh yes, I'm sharing it. So it's a puzzle game. It's that game, a puzzle game where we face questions about love and we solve puzzles. It's a really cool experience. It's more about an experience than that about a game. But if you have time and you want to try something really special, give it a try. About the masterclass, we are going to divide the presentation in two main parts. One in which we will analyze some theory concepts about character design, and another part where I will show you how all this methodology has been applied in real examples of my last project, Tenten. If you don't know Tenten, it's like a Pokemon game. So as I see, there are a lot of Pokemon fans here. It's like Pokemon, but with a lot of multiplayer features. It's in Steam, PlayStation, Switch, in every platform. So if you want to give it a try too, feel free. I don't get any credit for that, so feel free, okay? If you have any kind of doubts or anything, we will solve it at the end. We will do question and answers section, and also I will give you some feedback about some artworks that I have from you. And that way you can learn some really cool things, okay? So we will start with the presentation. First of all, we will talk about references. So my advice is to create or build a mood board, like a really big mood board. You can use tools like Pinterest. It's a very famous website. Or PureRef. If you don't know PureRef, it's a really cool software. It's free, where you can put all your images and use it. It's really simple, and trust me, you're gonna like it. Another thing that you have to do is not focus only on shapes or really specific things. You know, sometimes when we look for references, we look for really specific things and we lose the focus in the mood. Okay, I like to talk a lot about the mood, and it's the most important thing when we look for references in a project. If we design a character or a prop, an item, environment, everything, the most important thing that you have to think about is the overall mood of the project that you are working. The final step in the references, and one of the most important things in this part of the process, is to assimilate and absorb all the information that you gathered, okay? It's cool to have it in a mood board, in, as I said, PureRef or Pinterest, but the most important thing could be assimilate and absorb all this information about shapes, lines, colors, mood. That way you can implement it in your own art, okay? So we move on to the next step. I'm making a question here, like take notes. What I want to say in this section is just don't be afraid of writing, okay? Sometimes we think that we should be like the best writer in the world to put some ideas in a paper, but the truth is that words have a lot of power. So if you have some concepts or some ideas about what you are gonna put on the paper or Photoshop, it's a really good exercise to put things into Word, put the words next to your drawings, and that way you can remember everything at any time. Okay, it's something that we use a lot of also in animation. If sometimes if in any time you study animation, you will see how you're going to write a lot of things next to your animations. So it's a really good practice, and just don't have fear about that. Okay. The next thing I want to talk about is the story. Okay, the story of our characters. Everyone has a story. Okay, a story that defines us and makes us who we really are. That's the truth. A good practice about that is to think about who the character is. Okay, what defines him from his name to his past, present, or future actions. Okay, all the background that we have can be of great help when it comes to erasing the rest of the elements. Okay, it's really cool to have details about, for example, his family, his job, everything around the character when we have to face a project. For me, one of the most difficult or the hardest things when I face a design is to have too much freedom, because sometimes you don't know where to start. Okay, if you can define some aspects, you really are going to enjoy the process. The next thing that we have, it's a little bit more technical. Okay, it's the silhouette. I think that you should know about it, but we can find some really specific things in video games. Okay, silhouette is just one of the most important aspects of the final design of the character, for sure, but it's so risky to focus on the silhouette from the beginning. Okay, there are a lot of artists that recommend to start a project with thumbnails or creating a lot of silhouettes, a lot of shapes to make like a global idea of the final design of the character. And it's really important because it's a really important aspect when we have to sell the final design. But it's not so important in video games, because if you think in a character, for example, here, Bart Simpson, if you think about the TV series, you can see Bart Simpson in this exact shape during 90% of the TV show. But if you think about this character in 3D and you think about turn around with a camera, the silhouette is going to change at every second. So in video games, silhouettes are not as important as, for example, in cartoon TV shows. Okay. As I've said, to present and sell your design, it's really important to pose your character and think about the silhouette. But if we think about video games, it's not as important as it could be. Okay. The next big thing, and this is a really big thing, okay, it's shapes. For me, it's one of the aspects that I really enjoy about drawing and about designing something. It's a really big world, but I'm gonna resume it like a lot. Okay, you can make some differences in different kind of shapes. Okay, for example, the more rounded shapes will bring softness, friendliness, good vibes. Okay, you can find here a lot of circular shapes. Triangular shapes are much more dynamic, more aggressive, more sharp, are related to speed, to attack, okay? You can find it in, well, more agile characters. And also, we can say more feminine characters sometimes. And on the other hand, we have square shapes, okay? Like Ralph, are more robust, less mobile, slower, and sometimes a little bit more masculine, okay? I have to say that we must think about the overall weight of the shapes within the design, okay? We can use all kind of shapes, but the most important thing is which type of shape is the predominant, is the protagonist, okay? You can see why you can find little shapes in Ralph, triangular shapes, circular shapes, but the protagonist shapes are the fist, the body, and the legs, and all of them are square shapes, okay? So you can see that they are like creating the global mood of the character, like strong, slow, robust, okay? I repeat, you can use every kind of shape. As we will talk later, the most important thing in a design is the harmony of things, the balance of things, but you have to choose a predominant one, okay? These two characters are more rounded, and this is just a square. So remember the thing that I've said about harmony and balance, because we are gonna talk a lot about it. This is a little tip. It's like a funny tip. I only chose Super Mario 3 because of the rule of 3. And we can say that to make it simple, it's not a very strict number, but usually adding more than 5 striking and identifying elements to a character, it's too much, okay? The design ends up being, as I say here, oversaturated, and these elements lose relevance within the composition. So if we use between 1 and 3 or less than 5, it's fine, okay? It's better to make it simple than oversaturated, trust me. And sometimes when you face a design with too much freedom, as I said before, you used to oversaturate the design. It's like a really common mistake. So we move on, and here we have like a parallelism, okay? We have fantasy functional and historical fictional, okay? These are two ways of defining the design of our characters. It's not something like really important, like a key point, but it's something that we have to take in consideration when we face something like that. So the first thing is it functional or fantasy world? Does it belong to a more earthly reality with more recognizable proportions, elements, shapes, or does it belong to a fantastic world where we prioritize aesthetics above all else? The thing is that they have a lot of things in common, but the only difference is that in this case, you can feel free with a lot of things, like you're seeing like a guy with the same proportions of this woman, but look at the sword, okay? The other parallelism between historical and fictional, it's a little bit harder, I can say, when you face a project like that. They share the same proportions, the same treatment for materials, the same treatment for rendering. It's almost the same. The difference is that here, for example, in a project like Assassin's Creed, you have to follow like really much all the details, all the historical information, the materials, the shapes, the symbolisms, the skin tones, the hair tones, everything, okay? Because we have a lot of information from history. But in the other case, we also have to follow a lot of things, but it's our own world, okay? We can make our own rules and it's more free at the end, but we have to think that we have also rules and we have to follow it. Okay, it's not historical rules, but they are rules after all. We can combine all these four terms freely, so just enjoy it. The next thing, another thing that I like a lot, apart from this TV show, if you don't know this show, his name is Kimetsu no Yaiba. I think that in English is Demon Slayer, I think, yeah. Thank you in the chat. I think that is Demon Slayer. Here in Spain, it has another name. The name changes in every single country. And it's so famous and it's so cool because of the treatment of the materials, okay? If possible, we should give a lot of relevance to all the elements that surround our characters, okay? Clothes, accessories, weapons, everything, okay? Thinking about the social, economic, or political status, that way we can imagine what kind of material could fit better with each one of the pieces of clothing, okay? As I've said before, thinking about the story, about the background of the character, could help us developing all those things because it's not so easy, okay? Sometimes when you face these kind of projects, these kind of duties, it's so hard to build all this lore and all this world. So as I said before, okay, now you see that everything is building together. Thinking about the story, writing some tips, some concepts near the characters, it's gonna help you a lot to build everything, okay? Take specific attention to the items that characters are taking with them, okay? Because sometimes little items or little accessories, like for example, in this case, katanas or some kind of, I don't know, earring or something, could tell more about the story, the lore, the world of or the character than even the character. Because if you make the exercise of taking out all the clothes, the weapons, everything from these characters, and if you think about them naked, they are nobody. They are like nothing, okay? Everything that you take with you used to tell more about you than yourself, okay? More even if you think only about an image. So take a lot of care about every single item, okay? Sometimes it's true that sometimes feels a little bit boring, more at the beginning when we are learning to draw and to design things. But it's really important to take care of every single part of the design, okay? If you treat some part poorly, everything is gonna see poorly, okay? So think about it. Take a lot of care about little details. The next thing, and this is a really big thing, okay? I'm gonna talk about it a little bit lightly because it's a really big thing. We can talk a lot about color. We are gonna make it simple too. It's that I want to say that it's very important to establish a good color palette, okay? You should know it, but setting one color as dominant and the rest as complementary used to work, okay? I'm gonna give you some tips about how to focus this kind of duties when you are having a bad time choosing colors or finding a good palette. I used to work that way when we have to face, for example, a Tenten design or a Pokemon design, if you don't know Tenten. It's the same for characters like that, okay? Like this, for example, SpongeBob. Usually in this kind of designs, you can find a rule, and that rule is choose around 3 or 4 colors, usually 3 and 1/4 color for the contrast. One color is going to take 60% of the design, another color is going to take 30% of the design, and another color is going to take only 10% of the design. Okay, like 60, 30, 10. That way you are making the harmony that I was talking about, the contrast that it's really important in a final design, the balance between things. Then we will find a balance screen, but I'm going to talk about it here. So just to make it simple, 3 or 4 colors, 60%, 30%, 10%, trust me, you're going to enjoy the design. Maybe you could pick like maybe oversaturated colors or too desaturated colors. You're going to fail a lot when you are learning, but following that rule is going to make it easier, trust me. And if you have a lot of problems, as I said in the first screen, just follow references. If you can, professional references. Sometimes we follow fan arts or arts from other guys that are still learning, and that way we can make a lot of mistakes. So if you follow only professional artwork or someone that you really admire, everything is gonna be okay. Trust me. And I think the final screen about the technical tips, maybe one of the key features when we think about designing a character, but maybe the more complex one, it is the balance. Okay, I think that I don't have to say anything about this TV show because you should know about it. It's Arcane from League of Legends. It's a really cool TV show. But what I want to say about balance is that we must balance several elements in the overall design of the character. Okay, we can apply everything also for items or everything. Okay, when you think about a composition like this, it's the same for a character, for a shot, for a TV shot, for a film shot, for an item. It's the same theory, okay? But we must balance several elements. The most important of these are the level of the detail and the contrast tones, okay? This is a little bit complicated, but I'm going to try to make it simple. If we pay attention here to these 3 characters, the lower area does not have too much detail, and the colors are less saturated and less contrasted with each other. Okay, if you see the boots, you will see that they are not really bright colors or a lot of detail. But on the other hand, the upper zones are more detailed with smaller and noisier shapes. This combined with the brighter and more saturated colors make it almost impossible not to look at this part of the design. Okay, it's not something. This is part of our work to think about the design and to think about where the spectators are gonna look. Okay, usually when we talk about characters, obviously we're gonna look to the faces. So it's easy to put all the details, all the contrasted areas, all the bright colors, the vibrant colors at the top of the characters. It's not something random, okay? Just to summarize everything about balance and harmony, just try to think that if you are working around lines and around strokes, think about straight lines and curved lines. If you think about shadows, think about soft shadows like these ones and hard shadows with hard edges like these ones. When you think about colors, the saturated colors and vibrant colors, warm colors and cool colors. When you think about shapes, big shapes, medium shapes, and small shapes, okay? It's everything about contrast, everything about balance and everything about harmony. To control and mastering everything, it's just a matter of time, hard work, and a lot of patience, okay? But think about it. Everything harmony, contrast, and balance. So now I'm gonna show you some of my designs in Temtem, and that way you can see how we put everything together in a real design, okay? I'm gonna go a little bit faster in this part of the presentation. That way we have time for your answers and for the final feedback, okay? So these Temtems are Zephyraf and Bolaren. Maybe in English it sounds different, but I'm used to say it in Spanish and sounds that way, okay? As you know, Pokemon sounds different in every single country too. So this design has something special. At the beginning of Temtem, we did a crowdfunding, a Kickstarter. It's a platform where everyone can give you money and that way you can make your project. So there was like a kind of payment where people could design their own Temtem. So this is one of them. And the thing is that the guy wanted a lot of things, okay? Like a lot of clothes, a lot of feathers, a lot of things, okay? Like a mix between a phoenix and a velociraptor. It was so crazy, okay? And at the end, the thing is that we had to make kind of a Frankenstein. It's something that sometimes happens during the design of a character. This is the final design. And the key point about my experience doing this character is that sometimes you have to know that you don't have the control over the final design of your own character. And it's something hard to deal with because it's like your little child. But the truth is that it's part of the creativity project. Okay. Maybe your boss decide the final design. Maybe your client decided. Maybe I don't know. But you have to learn to deal with it, to deal with the feedback, to deal with critics, to deal with everything. Okay. As you see, for example, it's a kind of agile and aggressive Temtem, so there's a lot of triangle shapes. Also, the purple and the green colors, it's because it's poison. It's like a poison Temtem, but also fly Temtem. These the two colors that we use for these types. And we use the yellow ones to make the contrast, okay? This is the silhouette, and this is the size compared to the character. So the next design, it's Hocklip and Edgine. It's a digital fire Temtem. Digital Temtems in Temtem have that kind of self-made robotic mood, okay? It's like a cyborg, okay? And we want it to be like an attacking creature, okay? With equal parts of fire and digital type. So one of the animals that we have not used at this point of the project was the hedgehog, and it fitted very well with the idea of the character. We liked the base shape, this base shape from the beginning, but for the evolution we did many tests, as you can see. We tried many things, more bulky, more agile, stand up. We have another version in 4 legs, like many tests, because we didn't have like a favorite design for the evolution of this little guy. But one thing that remained is that we use all the digital tones as protagonists, and we reserved the fire for the contrasting areas, okay? And a detail that I really like it's that it's the use of the yellowy stones, as you see, on the hands as a kind of a fire retardant gloves, you know? And I think that gives it like a really unique style. And this is the final design. As you can see, there's a test, and standard test, but our bosses thought that it looked like other content that we had at this point. So finally we decided to put it that way, more like a dog. It's an hedgehog, but it's more like a dog with this design. I love this guy. It's one of my favorite designs. And the last design, it's Maoala. At the beginning, we tried with a pre-evolution and a final evolution, but we did it at the final steps of 1010, and we didn't have a lot of slots free for designing new ones. So we decided to make only one 1010 without pre-evolutions or anything. And one interesting thing about this design is that, as I've said before, I had too much freedom. The only thing that I knew was the two types, okay? It's fighting and mental. In Tenten mental, it's like psychic in Pokemon. So in these kind of situations where I'm missing information, like missing a lot of information, I like to make up a little story, as I've said, or lore about the character. I decided to use a tool, the boomerang, and a culture as a plotline, okay? Using a boomerang to generate hypnosis, seemed fun and unique to me. There are not a lot of Tentens using tools, so it's kind of unique. And when we're thinking about this kind of weapon, the koala was the animal that best suited for me the concept. So at the end of this test, we felt that he was missing the fighting type touch. So I decided to use the pattern of his fur, of his hair, to elaborate tribal iconography, something wild, you know, because using this tool and this pose looks like a mental Tenten, but without this wild touch. The fighting type is kind of missing, you know. So this is the final design. As you can see, we finally use a very subtle pattern here for the hair, simulating a tribal necklace, and a boomerang with 3 sides that works like a clock through telekinesis. You can see that the purple tones work as a base and give it a mental touch, while the white and yellowy tones serve to highlight key points and provide contrast to the model, okay? Think about what I've said before, like 60% for the purple, around 30% for the brown and yellowies. In this case, they are balanced, and more or less 10% for the white ones, okay? You can see that there are not a lot of colors. In this we can find grays, a little bit of blue, and the red ones. And here the same, only, you know, there are variations of the colors, but 3 main colors: purples, greens, and yellow and pale colors, okay? The eyes can have another color. It depends on the design, but if you can keep it simple, trust me, it's gonna be better. So this is the end of the presentation. Thank you very much. It has been a pleasure. to tell you a few things about character designs from my humble experience. Now, if it's okay with you, we will take a few minutes to ask questions for me and solve any doubts that you may have about this or about my video game industry or about my experience or about myself or about everything that you want, okay? I hope I can answer them. And if we run out of time, okay, feel free to write me on Twitter or ArtStation or email or, okay, whatever. It's gonna be okay. I'm gonna answer you, like, for sure. So yeah, sure. Yeah. Well, maybe I can give the feedback now, and that way we are not missing. Yeah, okay. Yeah, better. Better. So I'm gonna change to Photoshop. So if you're learning software for digital drawing or digital art, there are a lot of softwares, a lot of cool softwares, but the most common in the video game industry is Photoshop, okay? Because we use it when we are making concept art, when we are making textures for 3D modeling, for a lot of things, okay? So if I have to recommend you something, it's Photoshop. I have 3 works here, and I have to be honest, it's really hard to talk only about the designs when you are still learning and when you're still really young, really younger than me. So I prefer to give you like drawing tips, and that way everyone can learn from this, okay? So I'm gonna start with this. It's true that it's more like pixel art. It's not like a high definition drawing, but you can think about something, okay? Here you are working around the strokes and you are like giving a lot of relevance to the lines. When you do that, for example, here we can find lines too, and well, here is only stroke work, but we can apply the same that I'm gonna say. We can do this thing, okay? At the beginning, it's really hard to modulate the stroke. So one thing that you can do is both digital or traditional, it's the same, okay? You can use stroke like that, sorry. Stroke like that. I'm gonna make it here because here I have poor resolution, okay? Stroke like that, stroke like that, a stroke like that, okay? Imagine 3 different pens. You reserve this for the silhouettes and to separate big shapes between each others. This for big details, for example, that details. And the thinner one only for the more tiny details. Why? Because when you're working around really complex areas, if you use like a bigger stroke like that, you're creating a lot of noise, okay? And you don't want that. If you keep it cleaner, you're keeping it professional. Think about it. Cleaner, professional. If you look to your idols or the people that you really admire, you will see that usually they have like a really clean artwork. Here's the same. It's really clean, but we are only using one stroke. Think about modulate it a little bit, okay? It's gonna be simple and it's gonna push your artwork to the next level for sure. The more you practice it, the more you're mastering it. Another thing, and I'm gonna use this guy, it's that sometimes we can apply it to the 3D designs, okay? We have to think a lot about volume. I haven't talked too much about volume in the presentation, but try to think about the 3 dimensions of things. When you face a design like this and you work around an orthographic view, like a really frontal view, you lose a lot of information, okay? every time that we can do it, we have to present objects, design, characters, everything in 3 dimensions, in perspective. That way we can show our skills. Okay, it's gonna be a challenge for sure. It's a challenge for me too, every single day. But if you don't do that, you can show your skills. Okay. And the final thing, because we don't have a lot of time, it's that colors is a thing. Okay. Remember what I've said. I've said, okay, 3 colors, 60, 30, 10. If you come here, you find like a really big palette. Okay. This is crazy to manage. Even for me, it's crazy, and it's not better after all. Trust me, if you keep it simple, it's gonna be easier. You're gonna enjoy it. It's not gonna be a pain. Sometimes it's a pain to start applying colors for your drawing. So trust me, take 3 or 4 of these colors and it's gonna be cool. The thing is that sometimes, more at the beginning, when we are still learning, we focus a lot in line artwork, but we have to make a change in our minds. This is not easy, but it's the key point of drawing, okay? If you go to learn from any kind of book, you will see it, you will find it in the first pages, like 100%. Try to think about shapes, okay? A line that it's not close in the shape, it's not working at all, okay? When you are close in the shape, everything is more powerful. It has weight, okay? It's working. It has volume. When you are not close in shapes, when you are focusing too much in the line, you are losing perspective, okay? You are gonna start thinking maybe too much about shapes, but it's the key point in learning how to draw, okay? And learning how to design things. Maybe you don't see it too important when you are not rendering the designs. When I mean about rendering, it's applying color and lighting. But when you have to put, for example, here, a shadow, for example, I'm gonna make it like really fast and really simple, okay? You have to think about the volume, okay? Because if the light comes from here, I'm gonna make it really fast with the mouse, sorry. You have to think about the volume, okay? Until this point, maybe you haven't thought about it, but now you have to do it, and you have to know everything about the shape that you are presenting, that you are showing, that you are working around, and its projection in 3 dimensions, okay? It's like a really big step. But if you start to think about it, trust me that you are gonna make like a really big improvement. Just thinking about modulate the lines, modulate the strokes. As I have said, you can choose only 3 strokes and manage them around the drawing. Try to make the colors simple. Choose 3 or 4 colors and try to distribute it like 60, 30, 10%. Try to focus more about the shapes. And if after all you can think about the volumes, you're gonna be masters, like real professionals, okay? I think that with that feedback, you have a lot of information. So I think that that is enough. Try to push your drawings to the final steps of the production, because sometimes at the beginning we have a lot of fear to face the coloring or the rendering, and this is a big mistake. Try to finish all your drawings, because if you don't take to the coloring part, you never practice the coloring part, okay? At the beginning, they are not gonna look okay. Okay, sometimes even my drawings are not okay, but you have to try it. You have to lose the fear, okay? Trust me that with patience and hard work, you're gonna get it for sure. Everyone can get it. Okay. So if we are okay with this, I'm gonna go with the questions. I have like a lot of questions. So, okay, the first question, I'm gonna go really fast with the simple ones. Okay. What does mean less than 5? Okay, this is simple. I can draw anything now because I don't have time. Okay. Okay, is there any Wacom or tablet that you recommend? Okay. Maybe the most famous one are the Cintiq, the Wacom Cintiq ones. They are not cheap, but they are so cool. I think that maybe for you, when you are still learning, I recommend you iPad. They are so cool. The feeling is so good, and they have like a smooth feature similar to that. Look, if you are still seeing my screen, if I draw here, you will see. Sorry, you will see that I don't have it. Well, it's like a smooth. Okay, it erases this weird feeling. With iPad, you don't get it. Okay, so you have the money. iPad is really good. It's not as professional as Wacom Cintiq, but it's good. Okay. Okay. Any books? Okay, if I have to recommend you a book, I think that you have like a little document that I sent you, but there's a really good book from James Gurney. It's called Light and Color. I think it's a really simple title, but the name of the guy, it's like this. I'm gonna put it in the chat, like something like that. Light and color for the professional artists, something like that. Okay, it's a guy. I think that it's an American man that used to draw like a fictional world about dinosaurs. It's crazy. He's so good, and it's a really good teacher. Yeah, a really, really good teacher. I don't get any credit about that, but I recommend you that book. And also there's like a book about composition, but well, it's not a lot about character design. So, okay, next question. Free animation programs. I'm not a big animation guy. I don't have a lot of experience, but I think that maybe for 3D, obviously Blender, it's a really cool program. And even for 2D, now we're using Blender too. So if I have to recommend you only one software to learn, apart from Photoshop, Blender is so powerful, it's free, and it's growing so fast. In video games, in the video games industry, it's a really cool program, and it's so famous nowadays, for sure. We have time. I don't have a lot of questions, so if you want to ask me anything, feel free. Have a drawing tablet? Yes, I have, as I have said, an iPad, and also a Cintiq Wacom. And in the studio, I have also Cintiq Wacom. It's expensive. It's, I don't know, maybe around $1,000 and something. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, it's a lot of money. Yeah. But if you want to be, I have to say something, okay? If you are learning, if you are still young, I know that you are young, don't waste a lot of money, okay? You can learn with a really simple tablet, with a Wacom, like spending around 200, maybe. It's money, but it's not the same, and you can learn everything, okay? You don't need like the best tablet to learn how to draw. You can learn even using traditional skills, okay? Only if you are looking for professional achievements, at that point you can waste all your money, but don't do it if you are not going professional. Okay. I don't get one until I had a really cool job. So don't waste your money. That question I answered it. Skill is bad. If my drawing skill is bad, can I make a game? For sure. Like for sure. There are a lot of programmers that don't know how to draw and they're making video games. Nowadays, you can find a lot of video games in Steam or itch.io that hasn't got a really cool art style. Obviously, it's a key point of a video game. You know, it's an art, but you can make it for sure. Or also you can make your own game and find an artist to work with you. At the end of the day, making video games, it's one of the most choral jobs that you can find. Making a film or a video game, it's something about a group and to know how to work with others. So yeah, for sure. So what are some materials you suggest using that work well when drawing? I don't get it. When did you start to realize that you were going somewhere and where you're into game design? Wow. This is a really hard question and a really good one. Okay. So when I realized that, well, maybe when I was finishing my degree about video game development, and when I started creating my own games, I think that at that point I knew that this was gonna be my world. But I have to say something too. It's possible that at some point you find another thing. Maybe you can come to the video game industry and then you find a job in the film industry. Then you change to a production kind of job, and maybe you can discover that there's something that motivates you more than this. So don't bother a lot about finding your point or feeling like the best artist for the job or something like that, because sometimes you discover really cool things about the industry that you wasn't expecting. So any other artists that you get inspired by? Wow, so much. I think that you also have like a list, but if I have to say two, I'm gonna choose two. There's a group of artists, I think that they are two. They are called Monster Box, I think. This could be your last question. Okay. Pop back on the vale. One is they have so strange names. I'm gonna give another two. One is Max Greek. I think it's a really strange name, okay, for me. I think that it's this the name. Another is this. I'm writing some names of really cool guys. Another is, well, I have a list. I can find a list. Give me a moment and I write everything because this is so important. Look, you have a list here, okay? And this is the list of the books too. It's easier that way, I think. And it's a cool way to to close the presentation, I think. So I don't know, you find another really cool question or something that you are missing? We are ending the presentation. Well, I repeat, it has been a pleasure to be here. You have been so nice with me. And if you find any questions or any doubts tomorrow or after tomorrow, send me an email, write me through Twitter or through ArtStation or everything. And I'm going to be nice with you and I'm going to answer everything. Okay.
Thank you so much, Hugo. This is awesome. Everyone give a round of applause. You could throw your thanks in the chat as well. I wanted to quickly pop back on to talk quickly about the Character Design Award. If you are an artist and you want to create a character living in a virtual game world, you can submit it to the Character Design Award in the Student Challenge competition. I'll have one of my colleagues drop. I'm so sorry. I'll have one of my colleagues drop a link to the submission form. If you have a character that's super cool, it could be a character that you draw on your computer or by hand. So that award category is sponsored by FunPlus, which we're super grateful for, and you can win super cool prizes. I also want to mention that we have one more Level Up series in March, on March 15th, on video game journalism. So if you enjoyed today, please come on March 15th. I want to thank you so much again, Hugo. This was super awesome. I'm ready to draw right now.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. And thank you everyone for joining. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.